Okay.
Well, welcome everybody to the APAPA Back to School virtual event. We were really hoping to do this event in person, but because of concerns with the Delta variant uptake and the increase in hospital admissions locally, we decided not to do that. So I was thinking we would just take turns introducing ourselves, and then later I'll introduce our speakers so that we don't keep people too long here. We're very appreciative for those of you who have joined us. And I guess I'll start with introducing Parvin Malik. She has been, as I mentioned, a community organizer and activist in Fresno for the last 25 years, if not longer. And she has been part of the Iranian Culture and Arts Organization, a leadership role in that, and the Persian language school locally, as well as many other local organizations that she's worked with. She comes from a background in education, and she's a parent to 3 daughters and how many grandchildren now?
7.
7 grandchildren.
Wow.
So she's very busy.
Wow.
But she makes these sort of community events a priority in her life. And we're very grateful for everything that she does, including taking on the role of the chair position for APAPA right now. So let me have you introduce yourself a little bit more. Just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what APAPA means to you, because I know you went to the APAPA sort of leadership event last weekend, not this past weekend, the weekend before, in the Sacramento area, I believe, at the ranch that that one of the founders of APAPA has.
Yeah, ranch. Yeah, thank you, Mehdi, for you told everything and you didn't left anything.
I'm
for
sure there's
me.
a lot more.
But I am so delighted that you guys and we are a part of amazing learning community. I am sorry, I forgot to put my phone on on silence. Yeah. We welcome and value your positive energy and dedicated to excellent in education. As you know that this is the meeting today. It means I went to that 3 days. I went Thursday till Sunday evening to that leadership, National Leadership Summit. It was amazing. And I saw how strong it would be when all of our middle school, I am so sorry, it was the phone came in and I had to stop that. That how amazing it would be when we all getting together as a minority, then we will become majority, then we are not going to be a minority and our voice will be heard. And when we are together, we are much stronger. Thank you very much for introducing me. And I will give you to you. So if somebody else is here who want to introduce themselves, you're welcome. If not, Mehdi John, you can start it to introduce our guest speaker and we move on. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Also, let me have Paoha introduce herself too. She's online, and go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pahua Lor in Hmong. That's how you say it. When I was growing up, I would pronounce it Pahua. So it's very nice to meet all of you guys. If I turn off my camera, it's because I stare at the computer every day. And so my eyes are hurting and I'm looking for my blue lights and I can't find them. It's such a pleasure to be a part of this group. I'm really excited to get to know all of you guys. I've been a legal advocate here in Fresno for about 10 years, a little bit over 10 years. I grew up pretty much in Fresno, went to school up north and then came back. Fighting because I didn't want to come back to the Central Valley. I was like, don't take me back there. And then I came back and there's so much diversity and I fell in love with Fresno all over again. So I just want to say hi to everyone and it's really nice to be able to see everyone on here. Hopefully everyone will feel comfortable and turn on their cameras. And then as soon as we get through this COVID period, I really look forward to meeting all of you guys in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Pahoa. And then would you please tell us your position in APAPA right now?
Yeah, so I started talking to Chong probably at the beginning of the year, and I learned more about the group. So I am right now a board member with the group, and I'm so excited to be a part of like-minded individuals.
Well, we're very happy to have you, and thank you for your volunteering and giving us your time. I would like to, if you don't mind, introduce one of the educators online. If Dr. Tahvildari, if you don't mind, this is Negin Tahvildari from Fresno State. If I may have you just to say a few words about yourself and how long have you been a professor at Fresno State?
Sure. Hi, my name is Negin Tahvildari, and thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I'm glad to share this space with all of you. I am a professor with the Peace and Conflict Studies and also with the Linguistics Department at Fresno State for the last 10 years. And I share the same feeling with our previous guest who mentioned that we're now 24/7 in front of these Zoom cameras. I just switched in my phone, and grateful to be here, especially with Dr. Rajar and Dr. Mrs. Malik, who has contributed so much to especially the Iranian community, the Fresno community at large, also with their educational sessions and seminars like this one. So glad to be here, and great to see some of the students who are here, especially Farzam and the other ones. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Negin, for being here.
Well, I will go ahead and introduce our first speaker. Well, let's see if we should do it Brandon first. Let's see if Dr. Vorha is ready. Probably best if we start with Brandon.
Okay, then.
So
Yeah,
Brandon,
Dr. Vorha is.
yeah, he's on. I'll just have Brandon Vang start first. So Brandon was also one of the people that was very encouraging to me to join APAPA. I really wasn't familiar with APAPA until Chong and Brandon introduced me to APAPA. And as Ms. Malik said, the fact that it's an organization that includes so many different groups, includes all of the Asian continent essentially. And you can imagine with so many different minority groups that fall into that category, it's an organization that's able to provide opportunity for us to have a very strong voice. Instead of dividing and weakening ourselves, we can come together in one organization. And that's probably why APAPA has so many chapters across the country. And we hope to be able to really expand the APAPA chapter's activity. We were doing fantastic with the start. We had a beautiful couple events in 2019 with the onset of COVID, pushed back to the primarily virtual space, although we've had a few in-person events such as the rally against hate this past summer, which was beautiful. So Diamond Valley is Sanger Unified School District. As you know, this is an elected position, so it's an honor for us all as minorities to have someone like him representing us in an elected position. He's been elected twice, and he's a graduate of McLean High School in Fresno. And he's a father of 5 children, and in the last year or two, he's been battling cancer. He's a cancer survivor, and he's had a very challenging couple of years in the last 2 years, but we're very happy to see him healthy and joining us here tonight to speak a little bit about education and basically the future of youth, primarily minority youth in this country, what we can do together to help our own community, but also along with helping our own community strengthen itself
Maddie, I think there's something wrong with the sound. We can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now, or
Yes.
Better, yes.
I'm so sorry. Was it up, or was it just all of on mute?
We missed like probably a good chunk of what you said after Brandon Vang has 5 children, and I think it started.
Okay. Brandon, one of the things I asked him if he didn't mind sharing with us, and that was the fact that he's battled cancer in the last 2 years, and fortunately he's a cancer survivor and doing well. But he told me that, you know, this has been one of the most unbelievably challenging periods in his life, no doubt, especially when you're a father to 5 children and your spouse, and you know the emotions that must have gone through in that family. But we're very fortunate to have you tonight with us, and we appreciate your time. And we'd like you to speak to us and try to give our youth hope about how they can participate in this society and succeed in this society, despite some of the challenges that come along with being minorities in the United States.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Thank you, Dr.
Yes, we
Jar.
can hear you.
And okay. I must apologize ahead of time. I'm starting to lose my voice. I've been talking for the last 3 to 4 hours, and today is my Friday. So I apologize ahead of time. I'm starting to lose my voice. Thank you to the Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs Chair, Parvin Malik, for inviting me to share this space and talk about my experiences on the board at Sangha Unified School District. I am honored tonight to share the space with Dr. Vorha and Dr. Gajar on the presentation of Back to School. And a little about Sangha Unified. We have about 13,000 students and about 60,000 citizens or people within Sangha Unified. We cover about 180 square miles, including the city of Sanger, a portion of southeast Fresno, and a portion of East Clovis, including the Quail Lakes area. I represent Area 3, which is the southeast Fresno Sunnyside part of Sangha Unified. And as Dr. Gajar had mentioned, I've been on the board for a little over 5 years. As many of you recall, this past March 2020, because of COVID-19, our governor signed an executive order to close all schools, that's public and private schools, because of the danger of COVID-19. And I'm going to be speaking about what Sangha Unified has done since that closure to the present. Now, when that closure occurred in mid-March of 2020, every school district in this state has to overnight revert to almost 100% virtual learning. And that was and continues to be a difficult and challenging task for all school districts. But in particular, school districts like Sangha Unified, which has urban/rural students. And so finding Wi-Fi in the rural area has been one of the greatest challenge for our school district. But thanks to our administrators and the expertise and their leadership, we were able to accomplish that as best as we can be. Now, some of you may not know, but during that closure from the summer to the spring of 2021, prior to that, we, by exemptions to the governor's executive order, allow certain segments of our student population to have in classroom teaching and learning with our teachers. And so those cohorts would be our homeless students, our foster kids, our special ed students, and our students who are at risk of failing. So by the exemption of the executive order, starting August of 2020, we were allowed to have these cohorts in the classroom. And obviously, the protocols that the governor put in place had to be followed to the T. And so we were fortunate enough to have several hundred students in the classroom, but the majority of those 13,000 or so from March of 2020 through March of 2021 had to learn through virtual learning, which is online learning. And beginning in March of 2021, again, because of the slowed down spread of COVID-19, the governor allowed school districts to have students in grades TK, transitional kindergarten, through the 6th grade to slowly return to in-classroom learning. However, certain protocols had to be followed. And one of those is the 6 feet social distancing in the classroom. So it makes it difficult to have 30 students to social distance 6 feet apart in March. And so what Sanka Unified did was we did what's called the staggered AM, PM, staggered back to the classroom teaching, meaning that half of the classroom students will come in the morning, about 2 hours and 30 minutes. They would go home. There'd be an hour in between the sessions. And during that 1 hour, our staff will clean the desk, clean the room, and fog the classroom. And then the PM sessions will come in for, again, about 2.5 hours. And so from March through June of 2021, we opened our classrooms to TK through 6th grade students. The 7th through 12th at that time continued to learn virtually because of the different periods that they have to go to. And so that presents a problem in terms of movements of students in the classroom. And beginning this school year in August, again, by executive order by our health experts at the county level, as well as our health experts at the state level, and along with the governor's recommendations, we were allowed to bring our students, our TK through 12th grade students, into the classroom. Not only that, we were allowed to not have that 6 feet social distancing. So we were allowed to bring, let's say for a classroom that can hold 25 kids, we were allowed to bring the total of 25 kids. So effective August of this year, our students from TK through 12, if they choose to, will have 6 hours of classroom time each day. And we have been doing that. It is a challenging task for all of our staff. It is still a challenging task moving forward. As you know, COVID-19, it's still rearing its ugly head. The numbers are going up and down and up and down. And the school districts, at least Sanka Unified, has to have a standard operating procedure that at moment's notice, depending on the county health recommendations or the state health recommendations or from the governor's office, we have to pivot at that moment according to the recommendations of these jurisdictions. Now, A couple of weeks ago, we have a number in terms of the number of parents, or in this case, the number of students who has opted to have in-classroom learning compared to virtual. And in our school district, a couple of weeks ago, 96%, that's 96% of our students are in classroom, which means that 4% so far has opted for virtual, which is 100% virtual learning. And that's the option that every school district provides for our students. So if a student doesn't feel comfortable coming into the classroom, then that student will continue to have 100% virtual learning. And to put into perspective, before COVID-19, we have 97% of our students in the classroom on a daily basis. And before COVID-19, we have 3% of our student population to do what's called independent study, which is outside of the classroom. So if you look at the numbers before COVID-19 and at this moment, the difference is just 1%. And that is a number that is similar across Fresno County, across other school districts in Fresno County. So it's about the mid-90s who have decided to have their students attend in classrooms, and about 4 to 5% has opted for virtual learning. Again, from the cohorts of the homeless, foster kids at risk, and special ed students to the present, again, we are following standard COVID-19 protocols as recommended by our health experts, in particularly Dr. Vorha, our Fresno County health experts, whom my superintendent, along with other superintendents in Fresno County, has weekly meetings with Fresno County Department of Public Health. And as a member of Sangha Unified, I listen carefully to the recommendations of our health experts, in particularly the recommendations of Fresno County health experts, including Dr. Vorha's opinion. And from the very beginning, since March of 2020 to the present, we take these recommendations seriously, and we follow most of them, from our county to our state health experts' recommendation, and even recommendations from the CDC. And so Sangha Unified recently has collaborated with our California Department of Public Health to open a testing center for our students. And this is for Sangha Unified students only. And so we have centralized a testing center that if your student show any signs of COVID-19 symptoms, whether it is runny nose, coughing, any symptoms, they can come to our testing centers, and we have the rapid tests. And if the results comes back negative, then that student can return to the classroom immediately. And so instead of having 2 or 3 or 4 days of waiting time, our school district, which I believe is the first school district in Fresno County to have this service provided to our students, we are saving a lot of students from having to be absent for a couple of days. So if they tested negative in the morning, then they can return to school that day. And we have about 80 to 90 students per day who has taken advantage of this testing center, and it is free. It is free to the students, it is free to the family, and this is a collaboration with the state. And so we are doing the very best that we can to allow every opportunity to have our students in the classroom, because we know that learning face-to-face, learning face-to-face contact, visualization in person is the best case scenario for our students, and is the best practice, I believe, for our students to learn. But we are doing everything that we can at the board level and at the administrative level to ensure that all safety protocols are followed, and we are ensuring that we are providing best service for our students and our community as we can. Now, in addition to academics returning to the new normal, athletics is beginning to return to the new normal. In late spring of 2021, again, by recommendations of the state and from the governor's office and from our Fresno County Health Department experts, certain sports were allowed to be played. For example, football, volleyball, and other non-contact sports were allowed. And so in the spring of 2021, certain athletic sports were returning. And then that continues to be the trend when school began this past August. And so it is a challenging time for every school district. It has been a challenging time for Sangha Unified. I know that because I have 3 boys who are going through the COVID-19 return to school process. And as a parent and as a trustee, every decision that I make with relation to COVID-19 is based on what are the health and safety experts' opinion on this particular issue. And tonight I'm honored to be joining and to share this space with Dr. Vorha and Dr. Gajar with regards to back to school, here at APAPA. And so that is in a short synopsis of what has been happening with Sangha Unified. We will continue to pivot as needed in the future at moment's notice. We have great administrators. We have great staff. Again, this is a once in 100-year event, but I am so proud of our staff. I am so proud of our bus drivers, our custodians, our teachers, our principals, and our administrators, in particular, our superintendent. And I want to thank you, everyone who is here tonight. And just to touch upon what Dr. Gajar said a little bit about representing the API community at Sangha Unified. I am honored and blessed to be sitting on the board. Sangha Unified has about 12 to 14% of its student population that falls under the category of API, Asian Pacific Islander. And so if you look at 13,000, about 14% of that, 15% of that is of API descent. And I am proud to represent not only my 3 boys, but that 14 to 15%, and including those 13,000 students on the Board of Trustees at Sangha Unified. And if anyone has any questions now or towards the end, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But again, thank you very much for your time and this opportunity to present what Sangha Unified has done in the last 18 or 19 months since COVID-19. And I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, but I'll be here. If there are no questions, I'll be here at the end. And if there are any questions, then I'll do my very best to answer those questions. Again, thank you, Chair Parvin Malik, and thank you for the wonderful introduction, Dr. Gajar. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. If any of our audience has any questions, please feel free to raising of the hand so we can have you ask Brendan Vang any questions. I personally do have a question, if you don't mind me going first. My question, Brendan, is, COVID has brought a lot of challenges, but I think it also opened our eyes to a lot of opportunities. And I think one of those opportunities is the virtual learning and being able to connect to people from any time zone when it comes to having conference calls and without having to, travel. I was wondering if you feel that this opportunity for virtual learning could actually reduce truancy, meaning, or if people are sick, if children are sick, would this actually provide them an opportunity to not miss classroom teaching while still being at home recovering, and whether this could be a model for the future and really help out a lot of students?
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, when COVID-19 hit, we were about to open our second high school, grades 9 through 10. And because that opportunity presented itself, the current principal of that institution, that site, has implemented a program that specifically target your question, and that is to allow opportunities for students who may be sick, but not sick enough to participate in classroom activities virtually. And not only that, for students whose parents are on vacation and they're on vacation with their parents, to allow those students to participate. And so with technology, right now at the Sanger West campus for grades 9 and 10 in the Sunnyside area, we have a program where a student who cannot come to the classroom physically, but through virtual learning, we have videos where the student can tune in and actually see the teachers and the back of the other students as if he or she were sitting in the classroom. So we have cameras that pans where the teacher is teaching, and if there are any audio or video that the in-classroom students are seeing, that triggers the virtual learning students to see that as well. And so this is one opportunity for our school district to experiment, in a sense, to see how much of this virtual technology we can push forward. And not only that, you are correct, to reduce absenteeism, to reduce the rate of sick. And so this is an experiment project, a program that this principal has taken to his heart, trying to implement it. And if down the road it becomes successful, it could be district-wide. And so this is one of those unintended positive consequences as a result of COVID-19, directly as a result of virtual learning.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that. And, you know, people who have children who are sick, often it really is a big deal to them. And I think it's wonderful that technology like that has now been incorporated, you know, in the Sanger school district level. I'm sure a lot of other school districts are probably doing that. One other question, if you don't mind me asking, you had a recent unfortunate experience with discrimination and harassment as an Asian Pacific Islander American. And some of us may have experienced this at different times. But as you know, anti-Asian hate has obviously been on the rise since COVID. And as a Middle Eastern and a Muslim American, we have experience with the whole, you know, the terrorism and international terrorism, and experiencing that ourselves ever since 2001 and on. So if you could please share a little bit about what your experience was like. And I know you spoke on a local radio, TV station, which is wonderful. I'm glad that you got your message out to the greater community. But what would you recommend as the best approach to take if we have such an experience personally or ourselves, or any other learning that you took away from the experience, or the experience of being interviewed on television about it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, the API community, going back 100 years, has been on the peripheral of society here in America. And it continues to be in the 1940s with the internment of Japanese Americans, and in the 80s with Southeast Asian refugees, and as you stated, since 2001, and recently and currently continuing with COVID-19. The anti-Asian hate experience my wife and I experienced happened in early August of this year. My wife and I, like a typical American family, decided to go out and have breakfast and coffee at a local restaurant. And as an elected official, I am aware of the anti-Asian hate, the anti-Asian rhetoric, the anti-Asian danger that all of us, the API community, is facing because of COVID-19. Even then, when it happens to you, when you experience the hate, when you hear it, and when you see it, it's different when you see it on TV, or when you read it in the newspaper, or when you hear it from a friend. And what happened was, in that morning, my wife and I were having coffee and breakfast, and there were three white people who sat behind my wife, and they were enjoying their breakfast as well. And then all of a sudden, one of them asked very loud, "How do you speak Chinese?" And the others joining with "Ching Chong Chang" and phrases to that effect. And it caught me off guard. I mean, I was prepared. I even had conversations with my three boys about anti-Asian hate rhetoric and what they would do if this happens to them. But when it happened to me, I was a little bit struck odd. I was a little bit shocked. And so it took me a couple of seconds to realize that this anti-Asian rhetoric was being directed at my wife and I. And I knew that because immediately after I composed myself, I looked around to see if there were any Asians nearby, and they weren't. We were the only Asians there. And so I was about to grab my phone and record the conversation. But as soon as I moved to grab my phone and ready to record that conversation, the conversation stopped. And so they probably saw what I was doing, and so they stopped. We had our breakfast. We left. I spoke to the manager of that establishment. They said they will forward my concerns to the district manager. And this is a local chain. It has over, I believe, 1,600, 1,700 stores throughout the United States. And so I was waiting for the district manager to call me so we can have a dialogue, a honest discourse, a conversation about what my wife and I experienced and what the API community is experiencing. But I heard nothing from the district manager. And so I wrote a letter to their headquarters down in Glendale, Burbank area. And again, nothing. And so after 2 weeks of writing the letter and nothing, I contacted the local news channel and told them about what my experiences was, what my wife's experiences was, and our reaction and what we've done after that. And so as an elected official, I believe I have a responsibility, one, to tell my story, because I would have thought that, well, I read it in the paper, I see it in the news, but never to me, and never to me in Fresno, but it happened to me. And imagine if that was my mother. My mother is 96 years old. Or imagine someone who is a teenager. Imagine how they would react to that. And I think my wife and I handle it the way that we should handle it. We were composed. We did not engage these three individuals. We, I think, went through the proper channel, talked to the manager, and tried to talk to management, upper management. And then when we got no response from them, the alternative is to tell my story through local media. And so my recommendation to anyone who encounters any anti-Asian hate rhetoric or even physical threats is to be as composed as possible. And if you have to document that, whether it's through video or immediately thereafter, make notations of that. So you remember when, where, how it happened to you. And if you can possibly avoid any physical confrontations with anyone, because my view is they know who and my wife are, they can see that. And my thought was, perhaps they're trying to instigate, they're trying to bait us to do something more, but we didn't take it. Imagine what would have happened if we stood up and confront them. It would be a threat to us. It would be a physical threat to the patrons of this establishment. It would be a physical threat to anybody who is within that vicinity. So if you can diffuse such situation, try to record it, try to remember it, but try not to do anything that will escalate to the point where people's lives are in danger. So I still today, I have not heard from upper management of this establishment. I am not hopeful. I don't think they will reach out to me, but it happened to me. And because it happened to me, and I have an obligation to tell my story. But beyond that, Maddie and everybody else, beyond that, what else can I do? What else can I do to help address this issue? And at a realistic level, what else can I do in the future to lessen this so my kids and other agents don't have to face this possibility? And I gave a lot of thought to that. And so that is to be determined. That is to be seen as to what the next step is. But I thank you for asking the question, and I thank everyone for listening to this. And I believe the local TV channel is ABC 30, and they did a segment on that, so it should be on their website, ABC 30, and it should be under the race and culture, Brandon Lane, anti-Asian rhetoric. So if you Google that, it should be in there.
Thank you, Brandon. And I learned about it through your sharing it on social media, and I think you're right to keeping our cool and making sure that violence is never a part of the response or even a verbal altercation, but exposing it for the shameful act that it is. Racism is a horrible thing that plagues the human race, and I think we should expose it so that if it is present in our own local community, we know that it's present, and those people that participate in it, they should feel ashamed, and hopefully no one else does, and they learn from that shameful behavior that's not the right thing to do. That's one of the powerful, I think, one of the things that I think gives the average person a little bit more voice, as opposed to the past when social media was not such a big aspect of our lives, is that individuals can have a greater voice. Before, you'd have to be interviewed on TV only, and that's the only way you could get your voice out. But now you can spread that news, whatever it is, if it's an APAPA event or if it's discriminatory behavior that you experience, you can share that with your community. And I think that's one of the strengths of social media. I don't want to make the meeting too long, so let us go ahead, unless there are any other questions for Brandon, to our next speaker, Dr. Vorha. Dr. Vorha is, as you know, has been the interim director, the health officer for the Fresno County Department of Public Health since January of 2020. Wow, what a time to take over such a position, Dr. Vorha, just when COVID was breaking out, a complete unknown and a scary disease at a time when we didn't know how to treat it. We weren't sure about how it spread. We had no vaccines to fight it. And you didn't shy away from that challenge, and you've been in that position, and you've been helping lead our community for these sort of public safety measures that are changing, and they had to change because the information and the data was just coming out. The knowledge about the disease was evolving every day, and you had such an instrumental role in our public health for the local county. And we're very grateful and honored for you to have accepted our invitation to speak tonight to the APAPA organization. Just a little bit of background about Dr. Vorha. He was born in Bombay, India, and grew up in Texas from the age of 8. And he attended the Baylor School of Medicine. And later, he completed emergency medicine residency at UT Southwestern and the Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas, and went on to do a fellowship in medical toxicology in UC San Diego. Toxicology is a very interesting field. It's basically, you know, people that may ingest toxins and things like that. So that also has a very much of a public health aspect to it, because typically people go to the experts at the level of the county or the toxicology departments at academic centers. And since 2009, Dr. Vorha has been a faculty member at UCSF Fresno, Community Hospital Department of Emergency Medicine. He is involved in teaching residents as well as providing emergency medical care as the head of the toxicology department within UCSF Fresno. And he's also a member and director of the UCSF Global Health Curriculum. And he has served as an ambassador to Nepal, which is the ACEP ambassador to Nepal. He volunteered for quake relief in Haiti. And as I mentioned, his most important recent role has been with the Fresno County Department of Public Health. So let me turn over the meeting to Dr. Vorha. Thank you again for joining us.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me. Sorry, I had to change rooms. I got kicked out by my kids over there. They were being too loud.
No problem. We can hear you very well.
How much time do we have? I want to be sensitive of everyone's time and respectful of the schedule.
Thank you very much. We didn't have a particular time in mind. I would
okay.
hear from you for 15 to 20 minutes, Dr. Vorha.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. No, I'm still speechless from Brandon's story and really the courage and maturity that he showed. It's something that we can all learn from. So thank you for having me on this panel. That's our dog Winnie, as you can hear, and I'm sorry that he always knows when I'm unmuted. It's like he's got a superpower where he knows that, you know, as soon as I'm on a Zoom and I'm talking, that's when he starts barking. So I apologize for that. You know, I've had the opportunity and I've been blessed to just have a lot of different hats that I wear in my professional career. Like Dr. Gajar said, you know, my family's from India. I was born in Bombay, and I like to joke that, you know, I moved from one foreign country to another because we landed in Texas, and that was a culture shock that you know, I'm probably still recovering from. But in all seriousness, I have lots of family in Texas, and I really never thought I would leave Texas. But then I interviewed in San Diego, and then I was accepted for my advanced training in toxicology in San Diego. So that's kind of how I ended up in California. I spent some time in Los Angeles, and then my wife and I relocated to Fresno about 10 years ago. And I really just came because they have a poison control center at the Valley Children's Hospital and the emergency department at CRMC, which Dr. Gajar knows very well, is just such a fantastic and fun place to work. Never in my wildest dreams did I dream that, you know, that I would be at the forefront of the pandemic response, or that even we would have a pandemic. I mean, you can't predict stuff like this. You know, right before the COVID pandemic happened, the public health department asked me if I wanted to help out a little bit. And I said, sure, you know, let's explore this. This sounds like this will be fun. And then, you know, 2 months later, lo and behold, we have our first COVID patients here in Fresno County. And then those first couple of patients were very exciting and very scary. And then they obviously multiplied to now we have over 130,000 cases that we've been able to document in Fresno County. And there are probably many more that we just haven't gotten to test in the course of the pandemic. And obviously a lot of tragedy as well, you know, almost 2,000 people that have died in the county, and that's among 600,000 fatalities nationwide. It's just a really a sad episode in American medicine. The silver lining for me is that we've been able to continue learning and connect with people in ways that we would have never dreamt of before. On some level, we're doing it now. You know, none of us really would have looked forward to a Zoom meeting, but now this is just a normal part of life. So at that level, the technical connection is something that I think will stay with us and last beyond the pandemic. What Brandon said about the ability to offer remote learning to students is absolutely essential. You know, as challenging as that is to get the internet out to rural areas, there's no going back, and this is the future. And the faster we embrace it, the faster we will meet the future and be able to be ready for the gifts that it promises. The other way that we connected is really crossing disciplines and really saying, you know, our agency has a job to do, but we can't do it without the help of other agencies, and we need to learn from each other. And we need to teach each other and shrink each other's blind spots. And that takes a lot of humility, and that takes a lot of partnership. It's not something that you can really teach or learn in school, in my opinion, even though obviously we do a lot of team efforts in medicine. We all work in teams. This is just a different level of working together across organizations that are just not set up to work together. So the example of like the schools and the health departments working together, we do that with so many other agencies. We do that with law enforcement, with fire department, with different businesses, obviously with the hospitals and the clinics, even faith-based organizations. So we actually had meetings with a lot of different faith-based organizations. And it was really eye-opening to me, you know, obviously as coming from a different kind of background, going to church and interacting with church leaders was not really something that was in my context. But I grew to respect a lot of their opinions, and I really understood that, you know, if we wanted to reach every single person in our community, which was our goal through public health, we really had to call on the credible messengers wherever they were. And there's people that are not medical people that are very credible messengers in our community. And we have to be humble enough to admit that we need them as allies and partners if we are going to get the key health messages out to the people that we need. And lastly, the media. You know, we're actually pretty blessed with a very supportive media who really understands the role of science, the role of expertise. And I think that they do try to do their due diligence. They don't always get the story right, but you know, I think for the most part, they do a really good job as journalists that are working in very challenging times to try to tell a very complete story. So just let that be a reminder that, you know, I think you can count, like Brandon said, you're really just a phone call away from a local media outlet who will basically tell your story if you tell it in a compelling way. So let that be an asset, and let that be an instrument to really do the good work that you want to do in the world, because not every city has that, and not every community will support the robust media landscape that we have. I think that was something that we learned very early on, and we were able to do. That's why you see me on TV all the time, is because we understand that that's one of the assets that we have here in Fresno County, is we don't have necessarily people speaking the same language or the same level of education, or even, you know, people just may not have time because they're working one job that takes up all their time, or several jobs that takes up all their time. So we really have to meet them where they are and really go through different media streams. And I think that we've done a pretty good job with that. There's this other there's really this other phenomenon that has come up in the last few months, which touches on media, but it's much bigger. And that's something that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about. And that is the concept of misinformation. So this is just a big problem, and something that we really didn't foresee. I mean, we kind of knew that, you know, social media and misinformation was easy to generate, but I don't think anyone could have foreseen a year ago that we would have a miracle cure for COVID, which is the vaccines. It's not a cure, but a miracle prevention for COVID, which is the vaccines. It works better than anyone ever expected it to during the clinical trials. And yet this pandemic of misinformation is preventing people from accepting it. I don't think anyone could have predicted that. Even the people that are like hardcore anti-vaxxers, just how successful they've been. And that's a really sad testament to the power of media and really the danger that we have with things like misinformation and disinformation and social media, et cetera. I don't claim to be an expert about all those technologies, but this is really a lesson that we need to learn, is that, you know, when science and expertise stops being influential, then people get hurt. And that's exactly what's happening is, you know, people aren't listening to the scientists. They're not listening to the best experts. They're choosing other sources of information. And unfortunately, that's allowing this pandemic to persist much longer than it needs to. The reason that I bring that up is because I really think that, you know, we need to do better as medical experts and really as leaders in our organizations to really think about the role of communication and science communication. That's really been my real passion. So all the different things that Dr. Gajar listed, the thing that unites everything that I do is really a passion for medical education, because it's my belief that, you know, underneath every epidemic is this other epidemic that allows all these other epidemics to flower. And that baseline epidemic is medical illiteracy. And that's really what I've been trying to fight throughout my career, is educating people, giving them the information and the insights that they need in order to make the best decisions that they can for their health and for their family's health. And that's really what we try to do every single day at Public Health. But really, medical illiteracy is something that it's really hard, especially in this landscape, to fight. The reason that I'm spending so long on it is because as I look forward, you know, I think we're plateauing and the numbers are coming down very nicely for this surge. And so we're going to have a really happy October in terms of COVID. There may be other things that come up. The hospitals will stay busy. The flu is right around the corner. So remember to get your flu shot. This is just a reminder. But, you know, for COVID, for the month of October, I think we're going to do fine. The long-term outlook is we may have a few more surges like this, but we keep learning and we keep vaccinating more individuals and we keep generating newer and newer technologies against COVID, which makes people survive even the worst complications of it. So I'm very optimistic. You know, we may have one more year of really bad hardship, knock on wood, but beyond that, I'm hoping that this pandemic itself kind of becomes less and less of a disruptor in our daily lives. The pandemic of misinformation is going to stick around unless we do something about it. And that's really where we need to go, is learn the good science, learn how to communicate it, and then learn how to really apply it to our lives. And then really just get to why people are choosing not to look at it. There's a lot of reasons why they choose not to look at it. And there's a lot of science behind learning that will allow us to learn how best to reach people, regardless of their education level, their language, their background, their culture, et cetera. We can overcome all of these barriers, but we just need to focus on it. And so that's really something that that I'm definitely very interested in doing, and something that we will absolutely need to do if we are going to build public health to meet all of the different challenges to come. I'll end with the last challenge that I think with the young people that are in this audience is probably something that's weighing heavily on your mind. And that last challenge is really the future challenge of environmental change. And really with the climate doing what it's doing, we're going to have a lot of public health problems related to climate change. There's a lot of denial around that. People don't like to talk about it. It makes people uncomfortable. But, you know, we totally need to understand that denial is not going to allow us to survive all of the catastrophes to come. And we're just going to need to apply the same partnerships, the same humility, the same multilateral approach that worked for COVID against all of these other really big problems that are to come. And it's something that, you know, I know young people care a lot about. And it's something that I'm very passionate about as well. And hopefully, you know, as we move forward and move through COVID, it'll be just another issue that we will be able to tackle more successfully and be more resilient about here in Fresno County. So I think that that concludes my remarks. But I always love taking questions, and so I'm happy to just talk about whatever people have questions about. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to spend some time with you tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Vorha. I really appreciate your ability to share those experiences with us. I'm sure the audience has questions they'd like to ask you. I certainly do, but I want to give an opportunity to someone else to ask any questions from your experiences in Fresno the last 12 years and the last couple years as as the interim Fresno County Health Director.
Thank you.
Coria, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Like I wrote a comment in the chat about like I'm taking an argumentation class and how it's important to communicate ideas and stuff like that. How could we? My question is, how can we talk about COVID in simplistic ways that everyone can understand? Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I think this is an issue that triggers a lot of anxiety and a lot of difficult emotions. So on the one hand, I field questions all the time, which are on the surface, you know, questions about statistics, for example, or questions about, you know, what are the side effects of this or that therapy. But underneath those questions, the reason people are asking them is because they have some difficult emotions that they're working through. So the way that I answer almost every question that I get is to say, you know, I understand your concern. I understand that this might be an issue that raises some anxiety. Let's talk about that, but at the same time, talk about the superficial content that you want to talk about. So I think you have to meet people at that level of the emotional connection. I had the opportunity to listen to the Surgeon General just right before COVID started, and Jerome Adams is the Surgeon General at the time, and he gave us a great insight. He just said, you know, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. People don't care what you know until they know that you care, and that's really big. And whenever you see, you know, public health messages that fall flat, that people don't listen to, it's because that has not been met. And to me, that was just a huge insight. It's not easy to do. It's really not easy to do, especially when you have to make decisions in real time, whenever you have to tell people things that they don't want to hear. There's just a lot of emotions that get worked up because people have other agendas. But that's the key right there, is they have to understand that you care, and then they actually will start opening up and listening to you. I don't know if that helps answer your question, but.
Yeah, it did. Thank you for answering.
Sure, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask Dr. Vorha?
Yeah, sure. I'll ask him a question.
Thank you,
This is
Sean.
Sean. Well, I just want to say thank you, Doc, and thank you to the other speakers for participating tonight. Really appreciate it. You guys touch on very important topics. My question is regarding the climate change. You know, I live in California for 30 plus years now, and it seems like every year we have more and more fire in California, in particularly. And then, you know, the drought issues, and on top of that, how do you foresee our state finding solution to, I guess, having less fire or having more control of fires if there's a fire? And as far as the drought go, you know, I mean, how do you see all this impacting our people and our states? And is there a solution that you think that we need to propose to the governor's office?
Well, you know, I'm not a policy expert, and in fact, I've been chastised about advocating too strongly for this or that policy position. So I'm just reading about this, and the bad news is it's going to get worse before it gets better. How bad it gets is up to all of us in terms of, you know, how we choose to. And when I say all of us, it's like all of humankind. I mean, this is like a species-wide challenge. It's all about burning fossil fuels. It's all about the number of greenhouse gases that are in the atmosphere. There's a lot of science that explains, you know, all the things that are going on, but it's really hard to make those changes. You know, I think the drought is certainly a huge challenge. people are just going to have to make adjustments to how we live our lives, how we choose to, invest in the future. With the wildfires, I mean, I have the opportunity to actually, help with disaster planning and oversee some of that. Not all of it, because it's such a big job. But there's really smart people working on this, like around the clock, all year round. Is like, how are we going to make sure that the amounts that are burned are as small as possible? Sometimes that means you have to preemptively get rid of trees. Sometimes you have to do controlled burns. There's a lot of different techniques that people can do. But the bottom line is wildfires, you're absolutely right. They're getting worse. They're intensifying. We have more bad air days year after year. And all of those are going to have health effects on our population. So as the doctor, as the health expert, that's really what I'm looking at is, I'm going to leave the prevention to other people and really to big policy decisions that need to be made outside of the health department. But I have to take on the responsibility of taking care of the human aspect, right? The human reaction, what we really call environmental resilience. And we know that environmental resilience has to do with a lot of other factors. So, one big concept when it comes to health and climate change is that climate change may not be causing a lot of the problems, but it is going to make them all worse. So climate change doesn't cause droughts. Droughts have always been there, but they get worse, right? They last longer, and they take away more of our resources because of climate change, because the air is drier and the soil is drier. Wildfires have always been there in California, as because lightning creates fires. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're large. But on the whole, as the trees dry out and as our world gets warmer, wildfires get worse. So again, when I say climate change doesn't cause it, it just makes things worse. That's exactly what I mean. And same thing with people's health. People have kidney disease. People have other illnesses. And on a cool day, they may be able to do okay. But on a warm day, when they get dehydrated faster, their kidney disease catches up to them much quicker. So those are the kinds of examples that we have to think through, is to say, what are the underlying chronic illnesses that we have to address so that climate change doesn't make things worse, or that we can prevent that as much as possible. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but that's kind of how we look at through the public health lens. Like, this is how we have to really allow people to adapt, is to just say, how can we be resilient in the face of all these catastrophes that are coming our way?
Thank you, Doctor. I just want to follow up with one more questions regarding COVID-19 protocol for schools. I myself also a trustee in the Elk Grove Unified School District, and thank you to Trustee Brandon for elaborating some of the details that he has to go through in his school district. So I just wanted to ask you the question regarding the CDC's guideline. Masks are mandatory for kids to wear indoor and in school buses. But as far as outdoor activities, it's not required. And I just wanted to ask you, well, how do you, see that particular mandate?
Yeah.
And if anything else that you would recommend for us to be cautioned, or for us to practice, going forward, because we getting these booster shots, for the 65 and older folks, and I'm sure very soon most of us probably going to get that shot. But I just want to see your thoughts about this, because I think it's very important for all of us to know.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a question about masks and a question about boosters. With masking, we know that this virus likes to find its next victim whenever you're close together with other people in an indoor setting. So that's the highest risk. So in terms of risk reduction, go outdoors, space out, increase your ventilation if you're in a room. Those are all the ways that we decrease risk. Whenever you have to have a classroom that's full of children and they're all non-vaccinated, then wearing a mask allows that risk to be much lower than if they weren't vaccinated. Than if they weren't masked. So that's why there's a requirement for the masking indoors. Whenever they're out on the playground, they're going to spread out. There's lots of air circulation. chances are they're not going to be breathing each other's air. So we just say, don't share your air. You know, that's the simple concept, is if you're in a space that's so close, like imagine people packed in an elevator, that's the worst case scenario. You're going to be sharing air. That means you're going to be sharing germs. And whenever you're spread way apart, like when you're outdoors, you're not going to be sharing each other's air. And so it's lower risk. You don't have to wear a mask. So that's kind of how we look at the equation with masking. With buses, you know, again, we say leave the windows down, do as much ventilation as you can, but we know that you have to pack the kids in very tightly on the school bus. And so it just makes sense to do masking, especially if there's not assigned seating, which, you know, on buses, it's hard to do assigned seating on buses. With the boosters, yeah, definitely, you know, get your boosters. For Pfizer, they're approved now. If you got Moderna or Johnson & Johnson, the federal authorities want you to wait, hopefully just a few more weeks. But, you know, with these booster shots, the concept is that, you know, your immune system does really well after you get your vaccine, but it stops making as many antibodies over time. And so your antibody level kind of goes down. And then you need a booster to get that antibody level back up again. And then you're protected again, you know, back up to almost 100%. So that's the reason to get the booster. That's why you have to get a flu shot every year, is because, you know, last year's flu shot is no longer good for this year's flu. You need to get a new flu shot every year. We've been doing that for many years for flu. Last year, we really beat the flu really well. And so we're asking everyone to get their flu shot again this year, like you did last year, because that really allowed us to really come down on our flu cases and really protect everybody against influenza. So, you know, again, yeah, think about getting your boosters. If you're young and healthy, you don't have to rush in and get them. But, you know, all of our local pharmacies are now offering them, so it's not hard to get your booster. But think about it, and if you fit in a higher risk criteria because of immunocompromise, you know, you're a cancer survivor or you're living with someone who is one, then those are the folks that we really want to prioritize and make sure that they're protected up front. So we're really trying to get them at the top of the line.
Thank you, doctor. Appreciate that
Sure.
answer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Dr. Vorha, a quick question, if I may ask. How long you've been in this interim health officer position for the Fresno County Health Department now for a year and I guess 8 months? How much longer do you expect to be in that position? And is it usually a position that people occupy for, you know, many years? Or tell us a little bit more about your position.
Oh, yeah, thank you. You know, I don't know that it's really set. I think it's really, it really just depends on what else is going on. You know, I wear several different hats. Like I'm the medical director at Poison Control. I'm also a practicing emergency physician. And I really enjoy doing all those things. I mean, I probably have some ADHD or something. So I really like doing a lot of different things. And so to me, I'm happy being the interim. In terms of the other things that we do, there's so much, and that's what makes public health so cool. You know, on any given day, we'll be chasing down like the victim of a dog bite to make sure that the dog didn't give them rabies. We'll be talking about lead poisoning in children and making sure that they're not living in a high risk house that's giving them lead poisoning. We'll be talking about maybe having to shut down a restaurant because we found, you know, that the employees have salmonella or something like that, and we have to keep people safe. So there's just a lot of like really cool different diseases that public health has to oversee. Thankfully, you know, I have a team of over 400 people that are very experts in their field. And so they're able to do a lot of that stuff independently. But whenever things get complicated or whenever they need medical direction, then they ask me to get involved. And honestly, we've all been swamped with COVID, but we're looking forward to a day when we can go back to kind of like normal times and then do all these things that really attracted us to go into public health to begin with. And there's so many things that we do to just protect and improve the health of all of the people in Fresno, that it's a really fun job. And that's really what I'm looking forward to, is to get back to hopefully a more near normal time, so that we can kind of do a lot of those other things and share those with the public. I feel like we've had a really good relationship with our media partners. And so we really want to tell all these other stories that are not COVID related, because they're just as important.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Parvin, I was wondering if you had any questions for Dr. Vorha, or if I should just move on to my portion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vorha. It was amazing. Thank you. Pau has a question. No, I don't have any question, but Pau has a question.
I'll try to keep it very short. So I'm particularly interested in the education, because as you know, the environment and climate change really impact communities of color and poor folks a lot more than other communities. So in particular, as it relates to Fresno County, what is the county doing to educate the public about the environmental impact it has on your
Thank
health?
you.
And then also what Fresno County looking to do in the future to ramp it up?
Yeah, thank you for asking. You know, we've got a really good collaboration with I think over 20 different community-based organizations. And really this is called the COVID Equity Project. And all of these different organizations, you know, they work with our different minority populations, they work with our at-risk populations. There's just different coalitions that have come together really around COVID and the response to COVID. So they're doing a lot of education on that. But we know that the people that are vulnerable to COVID are also the ones that are going to be vulnerable to climate change. And so we're going to really be transitioning to use that same model to really build up, like you said, an educational and outreach component to what we do, so that those communities are well prepared for all of the challenges related to climate that are coming our way. So that's our hope. You know, we've got a lot of great ideas. We're building a collaboration called the Central California Climate Change Clinical Collaboration, which is a bunch of C's, so it's called C6. And the C6 collaboration will hopefully bring together a lot of different agencies, community-based organizations, and really get everybody talking about how do we move forward together, because we know that no agency can do this alone, and that we need to empower our communities and really do it through an equity lens, like you said, because some communities are going to be much more vulnerable than others, and we really will need to focus on them and really give them extra support to help them through climate crises, whether that's drought or air pollution, wildfire, or just extreme heat.
Thank you, Pahoa, for your question. Thank you, Dr. Vorha.
Sure.
We really appreciate both of your time, and Brandon Vang, who's a board member on the Fresno Unified School District. I was supposed to talk a little bit. I don't want to take up too much time. I just had some words that I wanted to share with you. I'll tell you a little bit about what I do. I'm an ophthalmologist by training, and I practice at the California Eye Institute. I'm also a member of medical staff at all the local hospitals, Children's Hospital, Community Hospital, St. Agnes, and the Veterans Hospital. And I have the opportunity to work with physicians in emergency departments, internal medicine, all the other subspecialties when I cover the hospitals for ophthalmology call. And it's been a pleasure hearing Dr. Vorha, because I first got to know him as an emergency medicine physician in the ER, but I was delighted to see his bigger role as the interim health director of Fresno County. One thing I wanted to tell our young people who are joining us, because we had sort of not only wanted to address the current situation with COVID, but we also wanted to address the young people as they started back up for the academic year. As API members, all of us, we all have different family experiences. Many of us, our parents came here as refugees, some came, as professionals with degrees. But regardless of our backgrounds, ethnic or sort of socioeconomic levels, we all experience similar challenges in America as minority groups. And we also have a lot of opportunities as minority groups. One of those is the various backgrounds give us different outlooks and different skills in dealing with the challenges of modern life and succeeding in life. Some of those sort of benefits of being a minority always, I think, are the harder, the ability to work hard, and that sort of focus that we have on succeeding in education. And I think education for minority groups has always been a means by which we can come up the social economic ladder. And I encourage all of you who are in their educational levels at university level, whether it's a master's level or PhD level medical training, to continue on that path and to try to succeed in bringing up yourself as well as your families and your community by advancing your education, because I think that's the one sort of to level of social equalization where when you advance through education, there's the most opportunities provided to you. Of course, entrepreneurship is another aspect, and that's another area where APAPA and some of its founders have been very successful. They've been successful entrepreneurs. But both of these are areas in which we hope as an organization we can try to connect people, not only network, but provide opportunities such as internship programs for our university students to work with public officials in learning what they do, and also trying to make inroads into public life and being more active in society as API members of within the United States. So I hope that seeing our two speakers tonight, Mr. Vang and also Dr. Vorha, that further motivates you that yes, it's possible to succeed in America as a minority member and to make an impact in helping the general community that you live in. So we hope to have future events, hopefully with more control of the COVID pandemic, in person again, where we can make closer connections and plan future events through APAPA. And we really are right now looking for new members and looking for board members as well. So we wish that you spread the news about APAPA and the local chapter in Fresno. And hopefully our future events will be even bigger and have a larger membership and more diverse group participating, because this organization is open to everyone from the API community. And we're very fortunate that we live in a very diverse area of the country. That's one of the things that brought me to California, is the incredible amount of diversity here and the ability to learn from each other. And the APAPA has opened the doors for me to learn a little bit more about the East Asian community where I live. And I hope that we are able to come together for future events soon. And please look forward to that. Parvin, any last words for tonight's event?
Yes, first, thank you so much. And you were right. And especially when I talk toward my Iranian community and Iranian friends, please, if you could, come and join to APAPA, because it is the American Asian. We are in Asia, and even it is much stronger, and we are much larger group than just identify yourself as a Middle East. We are in the Middle East, but the Middle East is part of Asia. As I told you before, then if we join all together, then we are not going to be minority, we are going to be majority, and our voice and our demand will be heard, our story will be heard. And thank you so much, Dr. Raja Mehdi. I have a question. How old you were when you came to United States?
I was about 9 years old, so very similar to Dr. Vorha. And it's interesting that we sort of chose similar paths. And he also, I think, left from a state that maybe wasn't as diverse. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but for me, it was intentional to come to an area of the country that was more diverse, because I enjoyed the ability to learn from other communities, and I'm also just feel more at ease, more comfortable. So that's one thing that California has incredible diversity.
Exactly. When I was working in the Fresno Unified, we had like around 97 different just language and different ethnicity in Fresno. That's amazing. I don't know if anybody have any question from you or no, but we have, I think, 2 of our students. One of them is Koryo, and another one is our Iranian friend, a student, Farzam. I want to give them like around 5 minutes to talk about the organization and how we could help them as the APAPA. If you don't mind.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm currently a Fresno State student, getting my master's at Fresno State in social enterprise, basically wanting to solve social issues through business. Um, Currently, I don't have any needs by the organization. I just like staying engaged and helping the Asian American community here because long story short, I've dealt with being half Asian, half white. You know, I'm proud to be an Asian American. I always feel welcome in the community. And thank you again, Brandon Vang, for talking tonight. And I'm from Sanger too, and so I'm glad that we have an Asian American on the school board. You know, if you need any help, you know, I would be glad to meet with you. And Dr. Rai, thank you for sharing too. Very insightful. I kind of feel like I'm not as stressed about solving social issues anymore because a lot of people are having the same ideas as I do, you know, and I'm just taking it one step at a time, and I'm glad to be here, and thank you.
Thank you, Corio. Thank you for joining us. And I've always, I've enjoyed listening to some of your family history in Fresno, meeting with your family too. Very interesting, history, of course, that the Japanese Americans went through in the local area. And hopefully with some of our future events, we can highlight some of the experiences of people that are still living and they lived through the intern years in this area.
Yeah, definitely. I just have one more thing to add. Maybe like we could collaborate with my sister because she has a Yonsei Memory Project talking about Asian American or Japanese American history and talking about the future generations of Japanese Americans to talk about Japanese internment, because I feel like a lot of people like in U.S. history in high school, I feel like we just brush over it. We don't even get to talk about it, and I feel like it's an important aspect. You know, it's not like, yeah, I feel like it's important, and maybe, yeah, one day we'll talk more about it.
That certainly is, Corey. I mean, 4 years ago, a lot of Muslim Americans, we felt that we were, maybe just steps away from that experience. In reality, that fear was very real for us. And, unfortunately, the Japanese internment, as I understand that there's a precedent for it that it's been upheld by the Supreme Court. So it actually serves as a legal precedent that you can do such a thing again in the future. So it's very unfortunate. So we'd love to have your sister as well as maybe your parents involved in setting up a program based around that issue. Farzam, I don't know if you're still here with us too. If you don't mind just saying a couple words about yourself and where you're at Fresno State. I don't know.
Hello, Dr. Vorha. Yes, I'm still here. First of all, thank you for a great talk from all of our speakers. It's a great honor to be in touch with APAPA. And well, as students, first of all, first thing to mention is that we would like to know, I'm also a Fresno State student, very much like Corio, and we would like to know how we can be involved and how we can have a role other than just being members. We expect to know what we can do to help in any way possible, and that would be great. And yes, it is my senior year at Fresno State at the moment, and well, I'm going through what a lot of people like Dr. Gajar or Dr. Vorha have gone through already, but just a couple of years ago. And we are grateful at the end to be here. It is a tough time, in the United States right now for a lot of minorities, but at the same time, we are grateful because still our parents are back home, and what they're going through back home in Iran is not comparable with the United States. And most of our people are living in misery under an authoritarian regime. So we have to address the issues in the United States and also back home, and how we can raise awareness about problems in our home countries and how we can potentially help Iranian citizens and also other societies that are suffering from really dictatorship. And I don't have a specific question for any of the speakers other than really expecting to hear from you to know what we can do to help.
Please raise your hand or just speak.
Thank you very much, Parvin. I think we had a very nice event tonight, and it kind of motivates me to have more events in the near future. And again, we really appreciate everyone that joined us, especially our two distinguished speakers. I'll leave it to that, and I hope everyone has a good evening.
Thank you very much, Mehdi, for running this program. It was wonderful. It was great working with all of you.